She was just a student until Black Hawks landed with her name on the side. The insult came first. "Move, girl. You're in the way." The words cut across the crowded lecture hall like a whip. They came from a man twice her size, dressed not in campus colors but in military green. His boots tracked mud across the polished floor, his voice heavy with disdain. The room fell silent as dozens of students turned in their seats, eyes darting between the intruder and the girl he'd chosen to belittle. She did not move. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead. Dust floated in the air like ash. And in the stillness, she raised her head not defiantly, but steadily, as though disrespect had long ago lost the power to sting. The man sneered. "Did you hear me?" A few nervous laughs rippled through the back row. No one came to her defense. Not the professor who cleared his throat and looked away. Not the classmates who shifted uncomfortably, waiting for her to shrink, to fold, to vanish. But she didn't. She slid her pen into her notebook with deliberate care, closed the cover, and only then rose from her chair. Her hands were calm, her movements unhurried. The man's face reddened at her silence. Authority thrives on reaction. She gave him none. Outside, the day was heavy with heat. The kind of air that clung to the skin, thick with the smell of asphalt and gasoline. She stepped into it without a word, the door clicking shut behind her, leaving whispers in her wake. On the courtyard lawn, sunlight bounced off parked cars. Somewhere distant, a siren wailed. She closed her eyes for a breath, remembering a kitchen table stained with coffee rings. Her father's voice, low and steady. "Respect isn't loud, Alara. It's quiet. It doesn't beg to be seen. It simply refuses to bend." That was before the war, before the folded flag, before she had been just a student with no intention of carrying anything heavier than books. But fate is impatient. The ground began to tremble. At first, she thought it was distant construction, but then came the unmistakable thump of rotor blades. Low, approaching. Windows rattled. Birds scattered in sudden flight. Students poured from doorways, shielding their eyes, pointing skyward. Shadows swept across the courtyard like passing storms. And then they saw them. Black Hawks. 2 of them. Their rotors shredded the air, their presence impossible to ignore. They descended onto the open field beside the library, blasting grass flat beneath their fury. The crowd pressed back, gasping, phones rising into the air. Alara's hair whipped across her face as the wind surged against her. She narrowed her eyes, heart steady, though every instinct screamed this moment was not meant for her. Until she saw it. Painted in white against the matte black fuselage, bold as a command, undeniable as truth. Alara K. Vaughn. Her name. The crowd erupted in disbelief. "Is this some kind of joke?" Someone muttered. "Who even is she?" Another whispered. The man from the lecture hall appeared behind her, his arrogance curdling into something uglier. Panic. This can't be right," he spat. "She's nobody." But the soldiers disembarking did not hesitate. Boots struck the ground in perfect rhythm, helmets glinting under the Sunday. They moved with the precision of men trained to waste no movement. And they moved for her. "Alara Vaughn?" One called over the roar. She didn't answer. She didn't need to. The entire courtyard already knew. Her father's funeral, the way the uniformed men stood rigid, refusing to meet her eyes. The stories half-whispered at night, about missions that never made it to headlines. The tattoo on his wrist, a falcon diving with talons outstretched. And how, after his death, men in suits had visited the house, asking questions, leaving warnings. Her mother trembling in the kitchen as though truth itself was dangerous. Now, those memories converged with the sight before her, Black Hawks bearing her name. Soldiers waiting with the same falcon tattoo inked on their wrists. A legacy she had never chosen was unfolding at her feet. The arrogant man shoved forward, desperate to reclaim control. "This is ridiculous. She's just a student. You don't land helicopters for nobodies." The soldier's gaze slid to him, cold and unimpressed. But Alara finally spoke, her voice steady enough to cut through the roar. "You're right." The crowd stilled. Even the blade seemed to pause, as though listening. I was just a student. Then she stepped past him, her presence quiet but unyielding. And in that silence, authority shifted. The soldiers saluted. Not the man, not the bystanders who had done nothing. Her. She felt the weight of every eye, every whisper, every disbelief. But beneath it, something deeper stirred. Not pride, not fear, something older, something her father had carried before her. The tattooed falcon was not a symbol of death. It was a covenant. The arrogant man shouted after her, his voice cracking. You'll regret this. You're not. But the rest was swallowed by the engines, as she climbed into the waiting Black Hawk. The doors slammed shut. The world outside shrank away. Inside, the soldier across from her leaned forward. He spoke quietly, but his words would outlive the roar of any helicopter. Your father said when the time came, you wouldn't run. Her throat tightened, but she didn't look away. Then let's not keep time waiting. The engines roared higher. The earth fell away, and the last thing the courtyard saw was Alara Vaughn, no longer just a student rising into the sky with her name painted on steel. Sometimes respect isn't loud. Sometimes strength is not in words shouted but in silence that refuses to bend. Alara didn't choose her legacy, but when it called, she stood, calm, steady, unshakable. And in a world quick to dismiss the quiet, that is its own kind of rebellion. What do you think respect means in today's world? Where are you watching this story from? Let us know in the comments, and if you want more stories of silent strength and unexpected courage, make sure to subscribe. Because sometimes the most ordinary people carry the most extraordinary legacies,